And can you talk about the parallel between these British artists and these Brazilian artists we're seeing here in the gallery?
I can probably talk from an aesthetic basis rather than from a critical basis. I encountered concretism not so very long ago, but maybe 5-7 years ago. This constructivism movement, I have to say, I was not aware of. Now, I think both movements have some interesting parallels, and this is so often the case, that artists who probably don't have any contact at all, working in different continents, find themselves exploring the same areas. And obviously there is a formalism that is at the root, and there is an interest in light, and there is an interest in small differences. And I think it's just very satisfying to see together things which I don't believe have necessarily been placed together before. I don't know the exhibition's history. I think at the Cultural Institute there was a lot of information about that which I didn't take in. But I think this is hugely successful. And to see artists who are very little known standing next to Richard Clark and Louise Cecil and standing up so well, and Oyatis. I think it was fantastic. And I chatted to Nick Sirota on Monday night and said this, and he said, well, of course these British artists are very good artists. Well, if they are, the Tate has not hitherto been showing them very prominently.
and these
nice.
the English artists,
Yes.
these English artists that are being exhibited here,
Yes.
what is their context? Where do they fit in the British art?
I'm sorry, they are hidden. We're not aware of them. I collect contemporary art. I collect things that are being made today. And since 2008, I have collected Brazilian. But in the UK, the work from the 50s and 60s I have bought has been in the more abstract expressionist tradition. So an artist who would be a similar age, Alan Davey is, I think, now 91. I have been collecting Alan Davey for 25 years, and in a period from the late 40s through to about 65, he was making, for me, work which parallels Jackson Pollock and de Kooning and the very exciting American expressionists. So that's what I was aware of in terms of parallels. I simply wasn't aware that there was a group of artists. I'd not heard of the constructivist movement. So it being a revelation, it's very exciting.
And would they be known, not in England, but outside Britain and in the European continent, like specifically France?
Yes, I don't know about France. I think some of these artists have been seen in the Netherlands, but I'm sorry, I just don't have this information because this is new to me. But I feel privileged to be here this evening, seeing something which is 60, 70 years old for the first time.
And are you willing? Are you contemplating to buy one of the English artists here? Yes,
English or Brazilian?
And which would be?
I want to buy a Stephen Gilbert metal sculpture. Because I can't buy a Lucia Clark.
And are you contemplating to buy a Brazilian artist here in the exhibit? So there would be a parallel.
I feel I already have at least something. It's from the 70s rather than the 50s and the 60s. But I'm not in that price range.
And what do you have in the 70s that you think is a parallel with Stephen?
Okay, I have, from Brazil, I have Sacerdote. And then, I don't think it's a direct parallel, but as it happens, there's a Robin Denny in the back room. In my office, I have a row of 5 pieces made by Denny in the 60s for a publishing company called Editions Elector. So that sits behind me on my desk. So I am aware of, and it's within the same formal and aesthetic tradition, although I think that cerebrally it is probably coming from a different place. Okay, have I done enough?
But another interview, okay? Could you tell us a little bit about your collection? How do you start?
Okay, I fell in love with contemporary art as a boy. I had a great uncle who was an architect who was very much an international figure. In the 1920s, he, a British architect, had a Japanese client who wanted to build a bank on the Bund in Shanghai, and he made this bank. So he used to take me around my hometown, Newcastle on Tyne, and I saw things, and I think at a very young age I became aware that artists see and translate the world differently, and if you will engage, it can be life-enhancing. So I saw that very young. I didn't start collecting until I was in my 30s, but I came at a good time because at the beginning of the 90s, I was working as a corporate lawyer. I started seeing these artists in Great Britain, and I could tell there was something very exciting going on. And I bought Tracy Emin in 1990, and I advised Damien Hirst on his first solo show, In and Out of Love, where he needed premises in the West End of London. And I came with the help very largely of a British gallerist called Thomas Dane to buy all of the YBAs before the name YBA had ever been thought of. So that's how I started building a collection, which I think is now a collection of some renown, because it's not the biggest and the best, but it's the earliest corporate collection of contemporary art. At my law firm, like every other law firm, had those very nice 18th century coaching prints on the wall. And we took them down, and we put Tracy Emin and Damien Hirst and Gillian Waring and Wolfgang Tillmans and Peter Doig around the walls. And it was different.
And have you shown some of your pieces in exhibits?
Yes, John and I now collect together, and we arrange for museum shows of our collection, and we ask independent curators to make selections within the collection and maybe parallel them with other pieces, and we've done a number of museum shows like that, which I found interesting, because one of the great things about collecting is the way one thing will bounce off another thing. Yeah. And so at home, every 6 months I have a partial rehang. And it just freshens things up. The things you've had for so many years become new when they are next door to someone else.
And where do you store the works?
I have a storage bill which is too big because I have too much art.
How many, if you don't mind saying?
I actually have no idea at all. But they are on the walls of friends. I hope there is not too much in storage. I want, for art to be alive, it has to be seen. Yes. And that's what I'm passionate about. So for me, this has been first collecting, and now almost, I would say, curating. I'm putting together groups of pictures and showing them publicly, and finding it very, very rewarding. We have a show on at the moment in Amsterdam in a foundation called the Frankendale Foundation, and it's work by a completely unknown Argentinian artist who is now in his 70s. It's work he made in the 60s and the 70s, which is when I was a young man, and he went to New York in '62, and in the period he was there, '62 to '68, MoMA bought his work. He went to London, the British Museum bought his work, but he has totally disappeared. He's under the radar.
And his name?
His name is Juan Carlos Steckelman. And we have a museum show on in Amsterdam, which, when we installed it, the museum said, look, we were having a July to August filling a gap show. And they said, look, we want to extend this by a month. And so we have a party to celebrate the end of it on the 30th of September. So people who can manage to get to Amsterdam before the 30th of September can see the show. And we published a catalogue. This is the first time I've done a publication. And that also has led me down a new path, and I'm sure we'll do this again.
And one last question, please. And as a collector, what are your next steps in collecting? Do you have some names in mind that from the new generation?
Yes, I do. I think Brazil is a very exciting place to be collecting young artists now. I think there are some parallels with being a young Flemish artist or a young Italian artist a very long time ago. And the artists we have been collecting are people like Andre Komatsu. When we started collecting Andre Komatsu, we were buying things for hundreds of dollars. And we have already shown some Andre Komatsu at the Brazilian Embassy in London. We will show, at the time of Freeze this year, a group of works by Leah Chaya, who is someone else we have been collecting in some depth. So I think there are very exciting things to be done. My son has got a show in London at the moment called The ABC of collecting contemporary art from Argentina, Brazil and Colombia. And those are the countries we've concentrated on. So at this Biennale, Pablo Asinelli from Argentina, represented here in Sao Paulo by Luisa Strina, we have in some depth. And we bought a piece that is showing in the Biennale this week, Nicholas Paris, who also, as it happens with Luisa Strina, we think is very, very exciting, and have bought work by him, and we're looking at more work today.
I understand you are more into conceptual art. What do you think about the new painters?
So, which group of painters are you thinking of?
Brazilian, especially.
I think I don't know them. We have collected painting from Buenos Aires, and I think there's a strong Argentinian painting tradition. One of the things, and I don't know if I'm repeating myself, I think is so exciting is this. The artists are not tyrannized by the new. They stand comfortably on the shoulders of previous generations. And I find that historical connection very interesting indeed. So in Argentina we have collected painting, in Brazil we're collecting conceptual work, and in Colombia we're collecting drawing.
Yeah. Nice.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so
Very
much.
nice. Thank you so much.